In the small village of Ojwoba, there lived a woman everyone called Mama Bammy. Her food was the pride of the village, especially her famous pepper soup. People from neighboring towns would come just to taste it, and Mama Bammy's stall at the market was always packed. "You can never find meat this tender anywhere else," she'd boast with a wide smile, her gap tooth shining in the sunlight. The villagers adored her. But little did they know that behind her sweet smile and delicious meals lay a secret darker than the night. Not far from the market stood Ojwoba General Hospital, a place that was supposed to bring joy and hope to the villagers. However, something strange had been happening for years. Healthy newborns would suddenly fall ill, and when the parents came back to check on them, they'd find the babies weak or disabled. The doctors always had the same excuses. "We tried our best," they'd say with sad faces. But whispers began to spread. Mothers swore their babies were healthy when they were born. Fathers noticed the hospital staff acting strangely, disappearing into locked rooms at odd hours. One day, a brave young girl named Ifeoma, whose parents worked as farmers, decided to investigate. Ifeoma was known in the village for her curiosity and courage. She had sharp eyes like an eagle and a heart full of determination. One night, Ifeoma snuck out of her house and hid behind the hospital's storeroom. She waited and watched as the doctors wheeled a large, covered basket out of the back door. They were laughing, their voices low and secretive. "Another one for Mama Bammy," one of them said, chuckling. Ifeoma's heart skipped a beat. Mama Bammy, what could she possibly need from the hospital in the dead of night? Curious, Ifeoma followed the doctors from a safe distance. She saw them deliver the basket to Mama Bammy's house. As they left, Mama Bammy dragged the basket into her kitchen, humming a cheerful tune. Unable to contain her curiosity, Ifeoma crept closer and peeked through the window. What she saw made her gasp. Inside the basket were not vegetables or fish but a baby. A perfectly healthy, sleeping baby. The next day, Ifeoma ran to tell her grandmother Mama Kesi, who was known for her wisdom and knowledge of the unseen world. Mama Kesi listened carefully, her wrinkled face growing stern. "I suspected something was wrong," Mama Kesi said. "There's evil in this village, and it's bigger than you know. The ancestors have been restless lately. We must act, but we must be clever. Evil cannot be fought with just hands. It must be outwitted." Mama Kesi took Ifeoma to the village square that evening, where the elders were gathered for their weekly meeting. The moon was full, and its silver light bathed the square in an eerie glow. When Ifeoma told them what she had seen, there was an uproar. "We must confront her now," shouted one of the elders. "No," Mama Kesi interrupted. "This evil runs deep. If we rush in blindly, we may not uncover the full truth. We need proof, and we need to consult the spirits for guidance." That night, Mama Kesi performed a sacred ritual, calling upon the spirits of their ancestors. Ifeoma watched as her grandmother danced around the fire, chanting ancient words. The flames leapt higher, and suddenly, a figure appeared in the smoke, a tall, glowing man with eyes like burning coals. "The corruption in your village has angered the gods," the figure said. "The hospital is selling your children to ritualists and witches. Mama Bammy is just one of many who feast on the innocent to gain power and wealth. If you wish to save your people, you must expose them all. But beware. Their magic is strong, and they will stop at nothing to protect their secret." The next day, Ifeoma and Mama Kesi began to secretly gather evidence. They enlisted the help of a few trusted villagers, including Chike the blacksmith, who was known for his strength, and Amina, the singer, whose voice could calm even the angriest spirits. Together, they devised a plan to uncover the truth and bring justice to Ojwoba. But Mama Bammy and her allies were not foolish. They had spies in the village, and soon, they began to suspect that someone was on to them. Late one evening, as Ifeoma and her team huddled together in the safety of Mama Nkechi's hut, a shadow moved outside the window. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but Ifeoma's sharp eyes caught it. She froze mid-sentence and gestured to the others to stay silent. Chike, always alert, reached for a heavy stick by the door. Mama Nkechi whispered a soft incantation, and the small oil lamp in the corner flickered. The shadow outside suddenly vanished, as if swallowed by the earth. There are ears everywhere, Mama Nkechi said grimly. We must tread carefully. The corrupt do not sleep when their secrets are threatened. The group decided to split up to cover more ground, but they would always meet at the village riverbank to share their findings. Ifeoma, brave as ever, volunteered to keep an eye on Mama Bammy's stall at the market the next day. At the bustling market, Mama Bammy stood proudly behind her table, stirring her famous pepper soup in a large black pot. The aroma wafted through the air, making villagers' mouths water. Ifeoma pretended to browse nearby, her eyes darting to every movement Mama Bammy made. A strange man approached the stall, a tall, thin man dressed in a faded brown agbada. His face was hidden under a wide hat, but his voice was sharp and commanding. Tonight, he muttered to Mama Bammy, slipping her a small leather pouch. Ifeoma caught a glimpse of its contents, shiny gold coins. Mama Bammy nodded, her wide smile never faltering. Everything will be ready, she said, her voice syrupy sweet. As the man walked away, Ifeoma felt a chill. She hurried back to the riverbank to tell the others. I know that man, Amina said when Ifeoma described him. He's not from Ojwoba. He's from the next village, Ipatu. They say he's a ritualist who pays people to bring him unusual ingredients. The group exchanged uneasy glances. It was clear now that Mama Bammy's evil deeds were part of something much larger. We need to find out what's happening tonight, Chike said firmly. Whatever she's preparing, it's tied to that man. Mama Nkechi nodded. But you must not go unprotected. Tonight is the kind of night where evil walks freely. Before they set off, Mama Nkechi gave each of them a small amulet made of woven grass and cowrie shells. These will hide you from prying eyes, she explained. But remember, if you feel the amulet grow warm, leave immediately. It means the spirits are warning you of danger. As the sun set and the village grew quiet, Ifeoma, Chike, and Amina crept toward Mama Bammy's house. They hid in the shadows, their breaths shallow, as they watched her light a lantern and carry a large covered basket toward the edge of the village. The trio followed silently, their hearts pounding. Mama Bammy walked with purpose, humming a tune that sent shivers down their spines. Mama Bammy stopped at a clearing deep in the forest, where the ritualist from the market was waiting. A fire burned brightly in the center, casting eerie shadows on the trees. Other figures emerged from the darkness, silent, hooded figures carrying bowls and knives. Ifeoma's amulet began to grow warm. She clutched it tightly, her resolve firm despite the fear clawing at her chest. Let us begin, the ritualist said, his voice booming. He uncovered the basket, revealing a healthy crying baby. Ifeoma's eyes widened in horror. Amina gasped, but Chike quickly covered her mouth to keep their hiding place secret. Back in the village, Mama Nkechi was not idle. She had gathered the elders and a group of trusted villagers. Armed with torches and weapons, they made their way toward the forest. Mama Nkechi's chants filled the air, summoning ancestral spirits to guide their path. Unbeknownst to Mama Bammy and her accomplices, the villagers were closing in. But the ritualist had his own magic, and the clearing was surrounded by an invisible barrier. As Ifeoma and her friends watched helplessly, Mama Bammy began to chant, her voice rising with the crackling flames. The baby's cries grew louder, echoing in the dark forest. As Mama Bammy's chant grew louder, the fire in the clearing flared unnaturally high. The hooded figures circled the ritualist, who raised his arms, a dagger gleaming in his hand. Ifeoma's breath caught in her throat. She could feel the heat of the fire even from where they hid, her amulet now burning against her chest. Just as the ritualist moved closer to the crying baby, Mama Nkechi's chants from the approaching villagers reached the clearing. The air seemed to shift, and the flames flickered erratically. The ritualist stopped mid-step, his head snapping up as if he'd sensed something. "They are coming," he hissed. "Fools, prepare yourselves." The hooded figures turned toward the forest edge, forming a line as if to protect the ritual. Mama Nkechi and the villagers arrived, their torches lighting up the dark forest like stars piercing the night. "You will go no further, Bammy," Mama Nkechi shouted, her voice firm and unyielding. "The ancestors have spoken, and your evil ends tonight." The ritualist sneered. "Your ancestors are weak, old woman. You meddle in things you cannot understand." With a flick of his hand, a gust of wind blew through the clearing, snuffing out some of the villagers' torches. The hooded figures charged, but Chike and the villagers met them head-on, wielding sticks and machetes. Amid the chaos, Ifeoma's eyes stayed fixed on the baby. She knew she had to act fast. While everyone was distracted, she crept closer to the basket, her heart pounding so loudly she thought it would give her away. Mama Nkechi, standing firm in the face of the ritualist's dark magic, began to chant louder, her voice a melody of defiance. The ground trembled beneath her feet, and the air crackled with energy. The ritualist staggered, momentarily disoriented. "What have you done?" he bellowed, his composure breaking. "The spirits protect the innocent," Mama Nkechi said, her eyes glowing with a strange light. "And they will not let you continue this wickedness." Taking advantage of the chaos, Ifeoma reached the basket and scooped up the baby. The infant's cries pierced the air, drawing the attention of Mama Bammy. "You little rat!" Mama Bammy screamed, abandoning her chance to chase after Ifeoma. Ifeoma ran as fast as her legs could carry her, weaving through the fighting villagers and hooded figures. She could hear Mama Bammy's footsteps pounding behind her, and her heart raced with fear. Chike saw Ifeoma running and leapt into action. With a mighty swing of his stick, he knocked Mama Bammy off her feet. "Go, Ifeoma," he shouted. "Get the baby to safety." Without Mama Bammy's chant, the ritualist's control began to falter. The flames dimmed, and the hooded figures hesitated, some dropping their weapons and fleeing into the forest. Mama Nkechi seized the moment. She thrust her staff into the ground, and a shockwave rippled through the clearing. The ritualist staggered, clutching his chest as a ghostly figure rose from the flames, a glowing spirit clad in ancient tribal garb. "You dare desecrate our land?" the spirit boomed, its voice echoing like thunder. "You will pay for your crimes." The ritualist tried to speak, but his words were drowned out by the spirit's roar. With a flash of light, the ritualist and the remaining hooded figures were engulfed in a swirling vortex, their screams fading into silence. As the clearing grew quiet, the villagers stood in stunned silence, their torches casting flickering shadows on the trees. Mama Nkechi approached Mama Bammy, who was still on the ground, bound by vines that had mysteriously sprouted from the earth. "You have betrayed your people for greed," Mama Nkechi said, her voice heavy with sorrow. "The ancestors will decide your fate." Mama Bammy sobbed, but no one came to her aid. Ifeoma, cradling the rescued baby, returned to the clearing. The villagers cheered, their relief palpable. But Mama Nkechi's face remained grim. "This is only the beginning," she said quietly. "The web of evil is vast, and we have only begun to unravel it." The night after the dramatic rescue, the village of Ojwoba buzzed with stories of what had happened in the forest. Around fires and under moonlight, villagers whispered about Mama Bami's betrayal and the strange, glowing spirit that had appeared. Some were too scared to sleep, while others stayed awake out of excitement, eager to know what would come next. But for Mama Nkechi and her allies, there was no rest. The elders gathered in her hut, their faces lit only by a single flickering oil lamp. Ifeoma sat by the door, still holding the baby, her eyes wide with determination. "This is not over," Mama Nkechi said gravely. Mama Bami was only one player in a much larger game. The ritualist spoke of others who thrive on our pain and feed on our children. We must find them before they destroy us. "But how do we do that?" Chike asked. "Mama Bami will never talk, and the ritualist is gone." Mama Nkechi's gaze settled on the baby in Ifeoma's arms. "This child is the key. The spirits do not send signs without reason." As the elders discussed their next steps, the baby suddenly stopped crying and stared up at Ifeoma with wide, curious eyes. Then something strange happened. The baby reached out and touched Ifeoma's amulet. The once warm charm cooled instantly, and the faint smell of jasmine filled the room. "What's happening?" Amina asked, her voice trembling. Mama Nkechi's expression softened. "The child carries a blessing. The ancestors have marked this baby for something great. But blessings often come with burdens. We must protect the child at all costs." The baby giggled, the tension in the room lifting slightly. "Protect the baby? From what?" Ifeoma asked. Mama Nkechi sighed. "From the ones who will come looking. When a ritual is interrupted, the dark forces do not simply disappear. They will send others to finish what was started." The next day, the village returned to its daily routines, but a heavy unease hung in the air. At Mama Nkechi's urging, Ifeoma and the baby were kept out of sight, hidden in a small, secure hut near the riverbank. That afternoon, two strangers arrived in Ojwoba. They wore fine clothes that gleamed in the sunlight and carried themselves with an air of authority. They claimed to be traders, offering rare spices and cloth from distant lands. The villagers welcomed them politely, but Mama Nkechi's sharp eyes narrowed as she watched them. Something about their smiles seemed too perfect, too practiced. "They're not traders," Mama Nkechi whispered to Chike. "They're hunters." "Hunters?" Chike asked, confused. Mama Nkechi nodded. "They're here for the child. We must act quickly." Mama Nkechi devised a plan. She instructed the villagers to keep the strangers distracted at the market while Ifeoma, Chike, and Amina smuggled the baby out of the village. The plan was to take the child to the sacred cave in the hills, a place protected by ancient magic. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the trio set off, the baby wrapped snugly in a soft cloth. They moved swiftly and silently, avoiding the main paths. But the strangers were clever. It wasn't long before they realized the villagers were stalling them. They abandoned the market and began searching the village, their smiles replaced by cold, determined expressions. "They've gone," one of the strangers shouted. "Find the child." Ifeoma, Chike, and Amina were halfway to the cave when they heard the strangers' voices in the distance. "They're following us," Amina whispered, panic creeping into her voice. "Keep going," Ifeoma said firmly. "We're almost there." The baby stirred, sensing the tension, but Ifeoma soothed it with a soft lullaby her mother used to sing. As they climbed higher into the hills, the air grew colder, and the shadows lengthened. The stranger's footsteps grew louder, closer. Just as the trio reached the entrance to the cave, one of the strangers appeared behind them, his face twisted in fury. "Hand over the child," he demanded, his voice echoing through the hills. Chike stepped forward, gripping his stick tightly. "You'll have to get through me first," he said. The stranger laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "You think a stick can stop me?" Before Chike could respond, the ground beneath the stranger cracked. A low rumble filled the air, and a faint, glowing light emanated from the cave. "The spirits are with us," Ifeoma whispered. As the rumble from the cave grew louder, the stranger hesitated, his bravado faltering. The ground beneath him trembled violently, and an eerie wind howled through the hills. The second stranger emerged, only to stop short at the sight of the glowing cave entrance. "What sorcery is this?" he demanded, his voice quivering. Ifeoma, cradling the baby tightly, stepped back into the protective glow of the cave. The moment her foot crossed the threshold, a shimmering barrier of light appeared, separating her, Chike, Amina, and the baby from the strangers. Inside the cave, the air was warm and comforting. Strange, ancient carvings adorned the walls, glowing faintly as if alive. At the center of the cave stood a pool of crystal-clear water. Mama and Kesi had spoken of this place before. The Pool of Truth, a sacred site where only those with pure intentions could find refuge. Outside, the strangers pounded on the barrier, their anger growing. "You cannot escape us," they shouted. Suddenly, a figure rose from the pool, a tall, majestic woman with skin like polished ebony and eyes that shimmered like starlight. She wore a crown of woven leaves and carried a staff carved with ancient symbols. "I am Adora, guardian of this land," the figure said, her voice deep and commanding. "You dare bring evil to a sacred place? You shall face judgment." The strangers froze, their arrogance replaced by terror. Adora raised her staff, and the glowing carvings on the cave walls began to move, forming a swirling pattern that surrounded the strangers. They cried out, their voices echoing in the night as the spirits of the ancestors emerged from the earth. "You have stolen innocence, corrupted lives, and brought sorrow to the people of Ojwoba," the spirits intoned. "For this, you shall pay the ultimate price." The strangers screamed as the spirits pulled them into the earth, their cries fading into silence. The ground sealed itself, leaving no trace of the men who had once threatened the village. Adora turned to Ifeoma, her stern expression softening. "You have shown great courage, child. You and your friends have protected the innocent and honored the ancestors. The baby you hold carries the hope of a brighter future for your village." The barrier dissolved, and Ifeoma, Chike, and Amina descended the hills, the baby safe in their care. They returned to Ojwoba as heroes, greeted by cheering villagers. Mama and Kesi stood at the village square, her face beaming with pride. With the baby safe and the culprits vanquished, the village began to rebuild its trust and strength. Mama and Kesi worked with the elders to ensure that the hospital was investigated, its corrupt staff removed, and new, trustworthy healers appointed. Ifeoma, now regarded as a brave young leader, continued to grow under Mama and Kesi's guidance. The baby, named Chidabem, God Guides Me, was adopted by a loving family and became a symbol of hope for the entire village. As the village celebrated its triumph, Mama and Kesi gathered the people and spoke words that would echo through generations. "Evil thrives when good people remain silent. It is our duty to protect the innocent, speak out against injustice, and trust in the wisdom of our ancestors. But courage without wisdom can be dangerous. True strength lies in unity, patience, and the will to do what is right, even in the face of fear." The villagers nodded, their spirits lifted by the lesson. Together, They vowed to remain vigilant, to protect one another, and to honor the values that bound them as a community. And so, the village of Ojwoba thrived, its people forever remembering the bravery of a young girl, the wisdom of the elders, and the power of the spirits who watched over them. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, share what you learned in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring tales like this one. Thank you.